Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to be here today. Let me just get this going up. Well, welcome to, thanks for joining us for the webinar about digitizing student registration and onboarding. My name is Peter Benzavanga, Operoo's president. I'm joined by our U.S. head of customer success, Samuel Banks, who will be joining us today. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. Now, as attendees, you'll all be set to mute to help with the audio quality. However, if you have questions during the webinar, there is a question box in the corner of your screen. Please enter your questions into that box, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the presentation and follow up afterwards if we run out of time. Also, we will be recording the session, so everyone who registered will be sent a link to the recording within the next week or so. And we'll also send you the slide deck that we'll be presenting today, and it will, have all the information and any additional information around registration and onboarding. Just as we get started, if you could just let me know in the question box if you can just make sure can you hear me okay, and can you see the slides? If you could just type into that question box, and Sam, can you just confirm that everyone's able to hear?
Yep, so I'm seeing yes, we can hear you. So yeah, you're looking pretty good. Have you shared your screen out yet? I don't think you've shared your screen out on your side.
I have not shared my screen. That's why. I thought I did start broadcast, and I am, for some reason on the sharing, Sam, I'm getting a gray, that's grayed out for me. Do you want to just make sure that I'm the presenter?
Yeah, sure. There we go. That was on me.
Great. Perfect. And we will be starting that. And okay. Let me present this. And you have it set to record?
Yep, started recording on broadcast, so you are good
Great.
to go.
Beautiful. So again, thank you so much. We're excited to be here today. Today, we're really going to talk about digitizing registration and onboarding, automating the most important start of the year processes. We know with registration coming in, as students in New York City and New York State have now started that process. We're going to introduce a recent case study that we just did on the New York City registration across the 5 boroughs. We're going to talk about digital registration and doing a quick onboarding demo just to show you how the system can help manage that piece, and then we'll do a Q&A session at the end. When we think about registration and we think about the last, back in this time last year, right before the pandemic, we were probably getting ready to get all those paper packets ready to do onboarding in New York City. And the pandemic hit. We have recently done a case study how we enabled schools in New York City and all across the 5 boroughs to transform slow and resource-intensive student registration practices, saving them time, money, and completing a traditionally people and paper-based exercise to almost 100% digitally. And today we'll chat with 2 of our school leaders that have actually transformed this process, Ms. Judith Weiss from PS 19 and Mr. Rennie Fong from PS 130 in Manhattan. So we're excited to have that conversation with them and really give you their take about how they went from a complete paper process to digital. Before that, a little just about us, talking about how we help schools and districts. Our mission is to empower schools and districts to use every minute and every dollar possible on student education, rather than wasting time on operational inefficiencies. And we really started this when we think about the process that we have done is to really manage workflow, operational workflows. It's not just about sending forms and receiving forms back, but we see how when we looked at paper-based tasks, how can we actually enable schools to save time and resources by automating these? And it's really about looking at what the workflow process looks like. Now, when we look at the workflow process here, what we do see is where do you start is with that template or form. And then what you can actually manage and thinking about how workflows should work is that you start with that form. Who has to approve it? Who has to receive that information? How do you automatically distribute that to your audience? Whether it's just a registration group, whether it's all students in the school, whether it's just the 12th grade class or the 5th grade class, if you need to now manage that workflow to automate that process and to make sure that once a response is actually sent, that the parents could actually receive it on their phone in their home language and that you can actually get those responses within minutes. And then what are the action items that then need to happen? When a form is filled out, what type of action should be triggered based off of how a parent answered a certain form? And then securely collect the consent, the payment, the medical, or any other data that you may need, and sending reminders to those parents who have not yet filled out that form. And then, of course, analyze those responses and manage that workflow. So when we see that piece, we really look to how do we achieve those operational goals. Today, we're going to really focus on registration, but one of the things that you're going to see is that, where you'll get faster and easier onboarding, but how do you manage everything else? We want to be able to help you streamline that communication, create digital school forms, consents, and approval workflows. How do you manage digital payments if needed? Simple field trip management, extracurricular activities. There were so many different workflows that we could help you manage. Today's just a conversation on registration, but we've seen the management of that from a lot of different places. And by doing that, what we've actually, in doing analytics of this, is that we save you money, your return on investment. By actually converting these processes over to a digital workflow, what we've seen in looking at a school with 1,000 students, that they saved over $70,000 in annual cost by implementing this system. Just for every 1,000 kids, that will have a $70,000 cost savings. The other part of that, which is even better, is that for every 1,000 students, every year you're going to save 21 trees, right? That is in paper. We had schools talk about their paper budgets, saving thousands and thousands and thousands just in paper alone and what they had to offer. And when we looked at the registration process, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? When we look at narrowing down the focus to digital registration and onboarding, traditionally, resource-intensive student registration takes hours to complete, sheet after sheet of paper, and a huge team of teachers and administrators, which costs money. Estimates indicate that the average New York City school spends a staggering $45,000 in just annual student registration, right? And these costs with paper-based elements of student registration application. But that's just the tip of a very expensive iceberg, as you see here. We have not included costs that derive from chasing down these forms, communicating with pre-registered families, manual data entry and management, student onboarding, all these other processes that we would have to actually manage. Now, all of you in the registration of this should have received a recent case study that we did in New York City schools, digital registration, onboarding, and blue cards, right? On how schools actually did their registration during the pandemic. And actually, we have over now 250 schools using this platform in New York City. That is up from 30 schools last year to 250 the year before to 250 this last year. Managing these processes. So everyone here now is a new process for everyone to go digital. Schools who chose to actually run registration through Operoo, I wanted to give some of these principals, Rennie and Ellen, who we have here with us today, a great time to speak. Sam, did we get Ellen on, and was she able to join? I will take that as a no. Ellen
Sorry,
was
I'm
having
talking to
problems.
myself. I had myself muted. Unfortunately, Ellen wasn't able to join us that I can see for now. Yeah, so we're with
Okay,
Rennie for today.
so this is great. It's even now we have a one-on-one conversation with Rennie Fong, principal of the DeSoto School, PS 130 Manhattan. Rennie, welcome. Great to have you on board today to discuss how registration went for you in New York City. Rennie, are
Oh,
you there?
yeah,
Just
I'm
check.
here. Thank you so much. Great to be here and attest to how much Operoo has saved our operations on so many levels.
Well, that's great to hear. I'd love to just hear a little bit about starting off with tell us maybe a little bit about your school and what ignited you to actually search for a solution like Operoo beforehand. You know, just giving just an overall context of where you're located, type of school, where you're at, and what was the reason of starting to look for a solution like Operoo last year?
Sure. We are in the Lower East Side in Manhattan, New York City. I have about 750 students currently from pre-K to fifth grade. And the pandemic really solidified why we needed something like Operoo. And yeah, Peter's email came from heaven while I was freaking out, when the pandemic had just started. And I was looking for a system of communication, just to our families, but because before that, we were just backpacking notices. And in my school, we have English, Chinese, and Spanish. And so every time we had to do a notice, we would have to translate it into Chinese and Spanish, make the photocopies, and then backpack them and hoping the kids would get it from their folders to home. And sometimes that didn't happen. And then when I got the email from Peter just introducing what at that time was CareMonkey, I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I need. And so not only did it solve the communication problems and translations, but then there was this whole electronic onboarding our families who I knew we would not be able to reach in September, our pre-K and kindergarten registers. So we used to have to make appointments for the families to come in, bring all of their proof of residence, birth certificate, all of that was done through appointments with 100-something students. That interrupted the flow of the office. They had to stop, make appointments, and do all of that, and still maintain all the things that were happening during the school. So with this pandemic and what happened, the whole process, even though in the beginning it's a lot of electronic communications, but I think more and more of our families are forced into that situation where they have to do things electronically. So Operoo fit right with that, where parents were able to take pictures, upload their documents. And so we digitized and onboarded all of our pre-K and kindergarten students. We have 36 pre-K and 125 kindergartners, all through the electronic system, which was unbelievable.
That's great. And I see Ellen has now joined us. Ellen, great to have you on board. Can you hear me okay? I see that you do not have sound connected. Not connected to audio. You can actually use the call-in number. Ellen, Sam, can you assist Ellen in maybe getting her that information so that she can join the conversation?
Sure, of course.
Great. And then we'll get Ellen on sound in a second and get her take on those about her school and why she decided to move over. So in that sense, and love to hear Rennie. I know that PS30 has been making good use of smart groups, right? And helping managing and automating the process of distributing, communications and forms to very specific groups like fifth graders, to immigrant families, to incoming pre-K students. Can you tell me about like the DOE form templates and how has that been working out for you around sending very specific types of forms and managing those workflows? And what were the things that you needed to do for registration in New York City? How many things did you need to collect and how were you able to track it with Operoo?
Yeah, I know our office had to do all of that, proof of residence, birth certificate, all of the data now could be digitized for that. In terms of various cohorts, even our fifth grade right now, they're going through the whole middle school process. We have about 125 fifth graders. So there you create one group where you can send them notices, making sure they're onboarded, making sure they're doing picking their middle schools, have their accounts ready. So that communication has been really, really invaluable. I'll give you one quick story, even in terms of safety. Just 1 week ago, we had an emergency outside. There was police activity, lower Manhattan. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, what do we do? Because we had a shelter in where we had to close this school where no one could go in and out of the school. And so I immediately told my account manager, hey, can you now shoot a email blast out to all our cohort B students to let them know that we can't dismiss right away. This was right around dismissal too. I was like, what are the parents, what are we going to tell them? How do we relay a message? And that was one perfect example of how Operoo saved us in terms of, the parents wouldn't be freaked out, that we tell them when we get the signal that's clear, then we can dismiss safely. So, things like that where you need to communicate right away to a certain cohort, that really saved us. So I want to share that with you, Peter.
That is a great use case. I definitely appreciate that. And when thinking about the some of the results that you have seen in managing the DOE forms itself, talk to me about like the in looking at results from the group case study that you participated in. PS 130 has saved hundreds of hours of staff and parent time. What do you put that down to? So where is that coming from that you're saving so much time and the management of that? How does it really Operoo help you with those challenges?
Yeah, just kindergarten and pre-K registration alone. We used to have someone, having to make an appointment with the parents, coming to the office at certain times, making sure parents made those appointments, brought the right documentation, and making copies of them physically. Go to the copy machine, make copies of that, then put it in a folder and file it away. And so all of that is saved now because it's done electronically. Parents can email and send their forms or upload it to Operoo 24/7, right? We don't have to wait for an appointment to get there. If they didn't send it on time, we can see exactly what they sent to us and then relay what we need from the parents in order to get them on board. So all of these things save hundreds of hours, like literally, and paper and personnel, where someone can now manage the emails selectively, see which parents did not bring in things yet, and so then we can pick up the phone call and call them if we need to. But so much time is saved now in registering all of our students. So that's been huge.
That's great to hear. Miss O'Brien, I think you do have sound now, right? Do I see that? Are you there?
Yes, I am here. Hello, everyone.
Great to have you on board.
Apologies for being late. We had dismissal.
Yeah, no worries. Completely understand. It's crazy that the school day still gets in the way, right, of everything that we have to do. So it's great to have you here. I would love if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about your school and where you're located, size, and some of your challenges that you faced during COVID when you were thinking about adopting a solution.
So we are located in New York City, in the Bronx, Woodlawn section. I'm a pre-K to 8 building. We house about 540 students. Prior to COVID, we had used other systems. I will not name the systems, but when I was looking for a centralized system, because it appeared as if emails were going one place. We also then had a school shout out, like through a text messaging in another place. So I really was looking to centralize, and this email came and I kind of read through it, and I sat in a webinar and I said, oh, this sounds interesting, let me try. Well, I scheduled a meeting, and the first thing that really grabbed my attention and said, we need to purchase this, it was the ability to translate into such a multitude of languages. This was a big wow. So my text message, my email. Second huge selling point was all of the Department of Education. Those are centralized documents were already uploaded for us, and the very easy capability of uploading in our documents. So those were like the huge wows for us. We started the system, we came in a little late in terms of probably like towards the end of September, and we started onboarding everyone in the beginning of October. The staff at Operoo was amazing in training my administrative staff and my office staff. Within a week, I'm going to say people had full mastery. We had my entire teaching staff and additional staff on. Within a month, we were able to get, which sounds like a long time, but and then it means every parent onboarded to Operoo. Once that happened, Blue emergency cards, emergency cards, I know there's a lot of, I'm sure, people on that are not familiar with New York City, but any emergency card typically could take up to 6 weeks to get everyone to have on. We had everyone's emergency card within 2 weeks because of the ability to push it out and send daily reminders to family and also provide it to them within their languages. I use Operoo on a daily basis. We've been opening and shutting crazy in my school due to COVID. My parents, I just did a parent survey. They said that Operoo, so I listed a bunch of ways that we communicate and what they thought was the best way. Overwhelmingly, 87% of my parent population said Operoo was the best way to communicate. So it has been beyond a time management saver. It has just been a phenomenal communication tool with our families and staff. And as I said, I love the feature of the forms that are available already. Anything that comes out, say a chancellor's letter, Operoo has it uploaded within that hour, so I don't have to then go into email, send out to emails. I'm able just to send out a mass email already with the form to all my families, which is very time saving. So it's been great, and any school that has multitude of languages, it offers every language. One of the languages that is the hardest for us is Albanian. It is translated over in Albanian. New York City doesn't even translate over in Albanian. So it's been great for us. So I'm really excited about being partnered with Operoo, and I look forward to continuing. Apologies for the bell.
Don't worry, Ellen. Appreciate that. Appreciate that really vast information and great feedback. When we look at, with Operoo and PS 130 and PS 19, they were able to really seamlessly replicate, distribute, and collect all the forms digitally that are DOE mandated. We've seen in the case study, we looked at 6 schools across all 5 boroughs of New York City, and when they automatically map and collected forms back to DOE issued PDFs for record keeping and being able to really complete all the registration entirely remotely using Operoo. Ellen, I know that you were able to complete registration for all your new pre-K and kindergarten students 100% digitally for the first time. That's amazing. But in particular, I hear that you've been achieving some higher and faster response rates than even before. Can you tell me about what happened around your digitized media consent forms and those results?
So every year, as I'm sure most schools do, we do send an updated media consent form. And typically, we don't even get the entire school back. And now, especially being that our students are on a blended platform and we're taking photos, we're trying to keep, school morale high and let the world see what's the great things that are happening. I'm going to say I had the media consent forms for, at that time, it was probably like 525 of students. We had our pre-K through K within, I think, 48 hours.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And I guess, Rennie, as it says on the results summary, we see here from the group case study that you're participating in that PS 130 has saved hundreds of hours of staff and parent time. how is it that where do you think the savings are coming from if you're saving hundreds of hours of time? How is that happening?
Yeah, it just the hours that we need to translate. Go get on the phone with all of the families. And just that communication is saved where you can just blast one email out. And then again, like Ellen said, if some parents aren't responding, you know exactly who it is, so you can pinpoint and save time rather than going through everything. In terms of the blue cards alone, also the hundreds of hours. Even with the pandemic, where we get calls on Sunday evening, like, oh, this student tested positive, so now you got to shut down this classroom. Like, how do you go about doing that without, a system like Operoo? So we can immediately get all the blue cards, give the situation room the phone numbers that they need, the OSIS numbers, everything is there for us to look up. So we're not like looking around and calling each other and saving hours and hours of time, and then sending out the notices that they want us to send out to the families. And like Ellen said, then it's translated right away. We can announce school closures and classroom closures, who can come back, who can't come back, and do that like in a matter of minutes versus hours that it would take to get all the staff together, calling the teachers, all of that. Like, how do we do that without this system? So I really told Peter, like, you guys have saved our school operations, because we couldn't have done it successfully and communicated with families, without getting them frustrated, if we didn't have such a system.
That's amazing. And I guess I'm going to put this question out to both of you, and then we'll go into a demonstration, and then we'll definitely save some time at the end so that participants could ask you both questions. But I would love to just put this out before. Right now in COVID, we saw the need to transition digitally right away. How do you think what's going to happen in September when hopefully we're back in full force? And where do you see this system actually being used in your school once COVID is over? I'll put it to Rennie or Ellen first, whoever wants to jump in.
Well, my goal has always been to be paperless. More trees we can save, the better. So one of the challenges, this is my second year as principal. One of the challenges is that I have a staff, and that's kind of old school, and technology was not the key. The positive side of COVID is it forced everyone to understand technology better and to use it. So Operoo was something that I would always want as a school building. So it has helped us through COVID, but I also think long term, it's just a program, a platform that should continue and will continue for our school. My parents love it. They love the text messaging. And you know what they actually tell me that in the survey, they said they really liked was the reminder, how you could set. So if you haven't completed it, they get another reminder in 2 days that says, oh, okay, I forgot to fill this out. Because one of the parents said it's so, we used to have a 2 in home school folder that went. She said, I have 3 children. I would get to one folder, say, oh, I'll get to that after dinner, and never fill out the forms. Now, all of a sudden, I'm getting this reminder saying, oh, you forgot to fill out a form. So I think the parents really tap into the pieces of it. I'm excited now to take it to the next level. I don't feel as if my teachers used it to the ability, because certain things aren't required this year. One, for example, trip forms, which were all such a hassle. I think they're going to be really excited how this has mainstreamed everything for them. So I look forward to continuing with it and using it for next year.
That's great. And Rennie, to piggyback off of that?
Yeah, Ellen made some awesome, great points. And yeah, there's no going back. After you do this, it's going to be an expectation of parents, the speed of communication and getting information to families. And in this world, we need that immediacy, getting things in. So yeah, thank goodness for Operoo. Like Ellen said, it made everyone more tech savvy, and it forced the issue. And with middle school, high schools now, in order to apply to register for pre-K, kindergarten, is all digital anyways. So this goes hand in hand with what's happening in the whole entire system. So yeah, families no longer have to come into the building to do the registration process. And if they need to come in for any specific reason, yes, we can make those appointments. But we save so many hours of not having to make all those appointments when the office has so many other things going on, on a daily basis. These things now are, can be done digitally. So we're really, really grateful for that.
That's great, Randy. Appreciate that. So I'm going to come back to you guys in a little bit, in about 10 to 15 minutes. I do want to just show a quick demo of how the registration process works in Operoo, just to give some schools some ideas of what they could do for registration and going through our platform. And then right after that, we'll come back to some Q&A. I saw there's a lot of questions already that we will get to all of them for both myself and for the our great panel participants. So one of the things that we've seen in registration is that to distinguish, you have all your students in your building, or students that may have that just go into registration groups. So one of the abilities that we have is to be able to create these registration groups, so that if you need to create your 3K registration, your high school registration, your kindergarten, K-5, middle school, depending on what registration process is happening at your school, you might have different forms that have to go to each of those registration groups. Some forms would go to all registration groups. Some might only go to the pre-K or the 3K or the K. Some might just go to the middle school. So it allows you to actually send forms to very specific groups that you may have. So if I go and I look at, here is my kindergarten registration, and we're only registering right now these 12 kids, we could actually design which registration packet forms that we want to send them. So that when you actually come in here and add a form to send to that parent, right, you could come to the registration forms already here. For example, you might be doing the ASQ surveys, like can they tie their shoes, and can they do this, and can they do that for pre-K, 3K, and K registration. So you might also be sending only like the 48-month, the 54-month, those forms to a very specific group of kids. You can even break out the registration groups even further, so that if you're sending those questionnaires out for registration. And then, of course, you might have all the different forms that might be sent home, everything from a blue card to an allergy form to the asthma medication administration form. And some forms might only go to a particular group of kids based off of if they only answer the form a certain way. So it's everything from all of these official DOE forms, the lunch form, the home language identification survey, the housing questionnaire, the new kindergarten, the MIC questionnaire only going to the kindergarten parents, right? And you have all these forms, everything from proof of immunization, proof of residence, everything that you need to actually capture. They're already pre-built in the system, so that when you decide, if I'm sending as part of my registration packet the media consent form, I can actually come in here and we'll put in New York City Department of Ed space webinar, so we know which one we're talking to. And you can see that this media consent form is already ready to go for you, and that you can actually, and the nice thing about this is that you could customize. So again, we give you the templates for the DOE. You can see that it wants your school name right here that you could put in. So any templates that are actually built out, it's either we could actually work with you to build out those templates if you need them. It's definitely if it's specific to your school, or we have the standard district templates that we could create that schools could choose, or the district or the school could send out on their own. Just pick the template and it's ready to go. Now, of course, because they're templates or anything else, if you needed to actually change things and add things to this, you can actually decide that you have additional questions you want to ask as part of your media consent form. Like if they're doing social media, can your child be part of social media posts, right? You might ask something very specific around that. Yes, no, need more information, whatever it may be, right? And maybe they can only do like TikTok dances only. I don't know, right? So you could do whatever you want. You could decide how you want these to be. You could require these fields or not. That's up to you. But most of the pre-built templates are already set and ready for you to go. And the nice thing from this standpoint is that you can now choose who gets this. If everyone in the school is getting this, might not be, but this is where those registration groups come in, right? So if I decide that in my student registration group, right, I need to send this, I'm only sending this out to my K registration, my K-5 transfer students, my middle school registration, and my pre-K, I could choose those registration groups, get that form. There are 57 students in those registration groups going. We're going to make sure we send that out, right? And this is where that part becomes important. Every form, you now can actually say, great, that how often do you want to remind that parent, right? We spoke about that. When do you want to send it out? So if you do want to send these out in the future, we have schools that actually time, in districts that time when they go out. Oh, we want this to go out on July 1st. This is the student handbook. We want this to go out on July 15th. This is the transportation request. So you can even date these forms so that over the summer you're engaging with your parents, with your new parents, orientation meetings, things that, letters that they have to read. And you could set these and time them so almost every week you're communicating with them while the system is actually doing all the work. Or it could go out immediately. And then it's about where is this? So this is now part of the, we want to put that as part of the registration packet. So now you can actually organize all your forms that are going to go part of that registration packet itself. And you could then save and actually send that form out. And going in and looking at that, and I'm going to come back to this triggers thing in a second, I could see that this form has now been sent to a parent. So every single form that's part of that registration packet was sent that way. And if I actually come in here and I bring up a student's registration packet and see where we're at, one of the nice things, and this was really important to schools, is that we're sending out maybe 10 or 15 forms for registration for a particular child. We need to track for that child whether or not a form has been completed or not been completed, and being able to review it and evaluate it to make sure that all the information is accurate. So if I come to any particular kid, I could actually look at all their e-form responses. And now, because we actually organized every one of these forms, the media consent, I could actually just type in the media consent form, the blue card, any forms that was sent out, I can actually organize that and say, this is everything we sent out to this new child for registration. So we sent them the blue card, we sent them the media consent form, we sent the parent guardian identification survey, the home language survey, the registration form, the proof of immunization, the proof of residence, proof of age, application for transportation, welcome orientation letter, and the order of protection copy. Now, they only got the order of protection is because they answered something on the blue card that said, they answered something on the blue card that would actually give them, to send them the form that they have to have a copy of the order of protection. And I'm going to show you how that works with our trigger application. It's all about bringing information to you and bringing information to the parents that's needed, right? So in looking at this, I could quickly see which things still need to be completed, right? I could see media consent form is not in, application for transportation, the welcome letter, they haven't reviewed the welcome to the student orientation letter hasn't been seen yet, and the order of protection has not been filled out. Now, very easily, I could see the blue card is filled out, the parent documents are filled out, the registration form is filled out. Now, as we said, and the way this system works is that any form that you send, right, if I look at that form response, right, that was filled out, we send it so that the parent could, one, see it in their home language, and two, that they can actually see it on their mobile phone. So every phone that then gets created that they have to fill out will automatically, like this registration form, will automatically be put into a linear format, right? So that when the parent actually sees this, they see it in a linear format. But what you might want, but you need these in an official format. So every single official document can then, you could send it to a parent so they could actually fill it out on their cell phone. And then if you need to then print it out, I could actually bring up that registration form and preview that registration form in its actual official format. Okay, let me bring it up. And so now I can see the parent filled it out on their phone. They were able to scroll up and down, which I'm going to show you in a second what a parent sees. And then I could actually see that the preview of that form is here. And I can see it's all filled out, all completed by the parent, all that information. So it will automatically give you that printable version of that student registration. And that's for any form that they fill out. We give them the linear version, the blue card, download the PDF. You need to print it in that official version. You could verify it, see it, and being able to look at that information. There's their blue card, right? So however you need it to look, we're able to actually print it up into those formats, but giving an easy way for them to manage it. Now, at the same time, in addition to looking at individual students, I can look at an individual form and see what's completed on that form, right? So if I actually come in here and look at that blue card, I can actually see, right, all of the parents who have now completed that blue card. So this enables this tracking where I could come and see everything with that green check, that blue card is now completed for those parents completed it. Everything with the yellow question mark, we're still waiting on that parent to complete those blue cards. So making it nice and easy to manage. I want to bring up a blue card, I could click on the down arrow and automatically right from here, bring up that blue card. So it makes that information become really powerful from a management standpoint. There's the blue card, great, right? At the same time, what I also might want to do is actually look at this blue card in a table view, which allows you to now look at all the questions that are in this blue card and give you analytics so that I could actually quickly look at the same exact data that you're looking at a card view, that I could actually look at this in a table view. So if I wanted to actually look at certain data in the blue card, I could get analytics in the charts. If I wanted to bring up additional columns, for example, let's say I wanted to look at some health information. So I want to see whether or not there's a health alert, whether or not there are limitations, and whether or not they have allergies. I could actually bring those data fields right into this table view so that if I needed to now do analytics on that, I could actually say, oh, great, let me look at allergies. Let me see who has a nut allergy, right? So I could just type that in and I could see, yep, I could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students have either tree nut or peanut allergies, and I could actually get that list of students, right? So if I only wanted to print up those blue cards, I could actually come in here and let me print up those 6 responses, send those blue cards into a PDF. If I need to print up the whole school, I can print up the whole school in that PDF view. If I need to bring this into spreadsheet, I could do it that. So you have a lot of ways to manage that data. But what really registration becomes, it's about not going to look at data like here. It's really that let data come to you. So when we think about registration and setting up a registration document, right, like the blue card, let's bring up that blue card for a second again, and we're going to look at the back end of that blue card, right? That, you have all these fields that they have to answer for that blue card. Again, making it easy that it's in a linear format, that they could just scroll on their cell phone, go up and down, and actually answer all those questions. But there are different things that you want to happen when they actually need to, when data happens inside that blue card. Think about if something changes in that blue card or a question is answered in that blue card, what might you want to happen? You can see I already set up a bunch of different triggers to actually execute when data comes in. And the way any form works, right? It could be everything. Yes, I need requests for transportation. Yes, I'm going horseback riding on the field trip. Yes, there's an order of protection for my child that we need to alert the school of. So what happens is that you don't want you have to go look at that information. You want that information to actually come to you, or action items to happen based off of how someone answers a question. So let's show you an example. Here's the blue card, right? There's a lot of questions here on this blue card. But let's say my concern right now is order of protection, right? So I can actually set this blue card up, and let me find that question. Here we go. Does an order of protection exist, right? So now I could actually, based off of how the parent answered this question, what actions do I want to take, right? I could actually say if an order of protection exists, and if a parent says yes, I want to automatically send an email, right? I'm going to send an email that to the principal, the assistant principal, the parent coordinator. I'm going to send an email out to these group, the AP of the guidance counselor, and I'm going to send out an execute immediately if someone says yes, that there is an order of protection, right? And I'm going to say, great, this student name. No, let's do their full name, not just their first name. This student name, profile name, has an order of protection. Please be aware. Whatever it is, you write your email out, and then we create that trigger, right? And then that new trigger gets created that any time that there's an order of protection, we're going to send a principal, AP, parent coordinator, guidance counselor, we're going to send that trigger right out so that they're aware that there's an order of protection. We also might say, you know what we need to do also besides that, besides sending an email, we need to send the parent another e-form. Because they answered yes to that order of protection, we're going to actually send a new form to that parent, right? And that form is, we need proof of the order of protection. So I think we have an order of protection form here. Here we go. Send that parent this form. If they say yes, send them this form to be completed, which is they have to provide the court order of the order of protection. We also might want to make sure we put a tag on that student, which would allow them to actually add a tag that they have an order of protection, right? So along those lines, phone call coming in, let me decline that. And they have an order of protection for that we tag them so that anyone who looks at the student profile page, they see the tag of order of protection there. So think about all the actions that you might want to take: adding a student to a group, sending them a new form, sending an email out, all the actions that you could have just on one question. And think about all the questions that might have to happen. Like if there's a change in the address, automatically send the parent a new form that we need new proof of residency. Or maybe there's an alert that they want to go horseback riding on the field trip. Send them a new consent form to do horseback riding. So making your registration workflows that different people need to be notified if different questions are answered on forms in the registration process, you can make that happen, right? So allowing that process really becomes powerful. And looking at that process really becomes powerful. And what does the parent see, right? The parent gets, when they first log in and that you're looking at that registration packet for that child, right? I'm going to bring up my phone here so that you could see what that looks like. And you're going to see my phone here in a second. Sorry for that background noise. COVID, 90 people working from the same household, right? So when you see my phone, when the parent first goes on and they're a new parent and they're coming in to register, they could download the app. They could actually go on the web browser in their phone. They can actually go through their website. However they want to answer these forms, they'll be notified and getting email and text message alerts for those forms. But on the app itself, I could actually see I have 5 forms that are still in the registration process that are waiting for me. So that when I actually come in and log in, it's going to now show me those 5 forms. And allowing that process really makes it, that you can manage, that the parent is able to see which forms they still owe, even though they might have said, oh, wait, I have an email that I need to fill out the blue card, right? Which you see here. You remember how we saw that blue card? If I look at that blue card here, I can actually see, that it's in a linear format, right? This is the blue card I owe. making it nice and easy, but we're able to print it out in the blue card format. And when the parent first logs on, they're asked for their user preference of what language would they like. So any one of these could be converted into that parent preference sheet. But I could actually see, oh, I have the health history form I need to do. They sent me a parent directory. I have an order of protection I need to do, and I can see application for transportation services. There's a welcome letter, and you can see the welcome letter just shows a view. So you track everything that they open, what they see, letters that were distributed, backpack letters, all of that. And I can see here's my media consent form that I would need to fill out, right? Making it really easy to manage and actually see, yep, here's my media consent. I could change the home language if I want. I accept it. I put in the information. My signature is on file already, right? But I could actually always just re-sign my name and yes to social media and submit the response. So now the nice thing here is that once this response gets submitted, is that once I submit the response, that what you will see is that that form will automatically disappear and it will go into their responded to area. So if they need to go back and change a blue card, they could go back anywhere during the year and say, oh, I changed an emergency contact. Please alert these people if there's a change and if there's someone new is coming to pick up, right? But all of these things allow that to happen. I see I only got the order of protection email because I answered yes to the order of protection on the blue card. So because of that, I can now come in here and I can see, oh, I need a copy of the court order. Let me actually just take a photo of that court order, and I can just automatically attach documentation right to this phone. And they need my signature for this, and let me sign it and submit that response. So allowing that to actually go is that it will manage that process. And now if I come back, I want to look at Jabril. The nice thing about this is that I can now look at the last time we communicated with a certain parent. I can see 20 minutes ago, we sent them some kind of email. It could have been a new form, probably that media consent form. It could have been a new a text message. It could be that. And I could actually track all their communications. But going back now to their e-form responses, I can now see which forms do they still need. Now I can see, going back, let's look at their registration packet again, right? We added that media consent form. We could see it was completed January 27th by Peter Benzavanga. Need to look at it, bring it up, here it is. So now I could see more things have been completed. Proof of residency, done, right? I'm sorry, it wasn't proof of residency. We looked for the proof of, it was order of protection, completed, done. I need to look at it, and there it is. So I could actually see that. And that's the nice thing, all that documentation that you're looking to collect, proof of age, proof of residency, birth certificate, proof of age, birth certificate here. I need to download it, I could download it. Having all that information tagged, when the parent sent it, what it was, keeping it all in one place. Managing that allows for that workflow. I do want to allow us now time for questions. So I will start now going through some questions. I'll come back here and let's bring up the next slide. So again, all your registration forms ready, automated tracking and reminders, multi-language comms and mobile access, communicate with the pre-admitted families, you know, while you're communicating with really your other parents also. Eliminate data because the PDF mapping is right there so you can print out everything, and having those triggers really allow for a robust education process. So I'm going to take some questions off the site here. So let me just get some here. Great that everyone could hear. Okay, I have questions specific to kindergarten registration. We used Operoo for pre-K registration last year. Now these same students need to re-register for kindergarten. They will need to complete many of the same forms they did in pre-K. How do I make sure they have blank forms? That is a great question. You could actually re-deliver your new forms, right? You could reset up that you can put them in a new group and saying now this is the kindergarten registration group, and resend those registration forms to recomplete. You could reset their responses, or you could keep their old responses and send them a new version that they would have to complete. The nice thing, what we could do is you could actually just have them update their existing form for a registration process of kindergarten. So you could do it in a lot of different ways. And if, we could definitely set up some time, you could send us an email and we could look at that piece. Now, what are the yearly costs? The cost is prorated for the remaining of the year. Yes, costs are prorated for the remaining of the school year. So you are able to do a prorated amount. You can actually just contact us at operoo.com/contact-us. We could discuss pricing based off of your school size or your district size and how much the platform costs individually. Next question. Aren't you worried about documents being sent by email? Right, that's the nice thing, is that these documents are not being sent by email. The documents, the email is sent to respond to that platform, and then they go to the platform to respond to all of these documents. That has been the benefit, is that each parent has user credentials that they don't go into email. So once you actually add a new student to your thing, or you take your pre-enrolled students and group them together, they will get an account activation link, which is their username and password, and then they have to securely log in to answer any single forms, which makes that process that you're not sending these PDFs by email and sending it back, which is the most insecure way to send documents. So this process now takes the email part, other than actually saying, do you want to respond to it, but it has to actually have them log in to put in credentials. As part of a form, can we have parents take pictures of documents? Yep, you saw it right there. You can take a picture and attach it to the form immediately. It's been one of the saving graces, because since so many parents are doing it through their cell phone, that process actually makes it a lot easier. How does Operoo maintain the privacy and confidentiality of the students and parents in alignment with FERPA law and other laws that protect privacy of students and families? That is a great question, right? The one thing is that we are not only FERPA compliant, Ed Law 2 compliant, and HIPAA compliant. Every parent gets all our privacy documentation is definitely on our website. We could send you for New York City, we could send you our DIIT NDA that we have in place with New York City Department of Education. So with that, and all of our security protocols through our website follow all of these required laws. And I'm definitely willing to discuss with anyone further on that piece and how that works. Thank you for that question. What formats are parents using to submit the required docs? Birth certificate, proof of address, Jpegs. Again, the great thing is they could upload it, they could take a picture of it. It allows any required docs to actually be managed right through their phone. You saw how easy it was just to take a picture of the court order. You could take a picture of the birth certificate, and then you could actually reject the document, saying, nope, this is not good, resubmit this form with a new document. So it gives you that workflow management that makes it easy for parents to actually submit any documentation in that data collection process. So where does Operoo store the documents uploaded by parents and schools into the platform? We are completely cloud-based, right? We use a government security AWS version, so that you have it's all through Amazon Web Services, completely cloud, and that only you and your school or your district have access to those documents based off of a role-based permission. So if you don't have a role to actually see that, then you cannot see those documents or forms or private information. How are language translated? Right, so any form that is actually put in, we use a paid for translation service that will actually take any document, whether you send a letter, a text, or information, we will automatically do and translate that into the parent's home language based off of the preference that they choose when they log in. The first time a parent logs in, they request how they want to receive information, if it's in another language. Yep, we saw a demonstration, so I could skip that question. When you receive registration forms back from the parent, I will still need to enter information into ATS. Am I correct? That is correct. So one of the things that enables you to do is that One is you're able to print out all these different. There is no direct write back to ATS in New York City. No one has that direct write back, but it keeps you organized. And we also create that you can actually put these in PDF where you could copy and paste into ATS or a spreadsheet to actually manage that workflow. And how are things pushed out, like letters from the chancellor? Right. Every time that we get an updated form by the DOE or an updated chancellor's backpack letter or anything, those will automatically go into the system. So you will actually automatically, you will see them in the templates. When a new backpack letter comes out, you just go to the templates, look for that new letter that came out, you click on it, and you send it. We don't proactively send these letters for you, but we store them all for you, and we keep them in your environment that you can actually choose any letters to go out. And all families are able to fill out all these forms digitally online. That is correct. Any form that you need to create and that piece. Does Operoo provide training to schools? And do they manage any troubleshooting issues instead of putting the schools to figure it out? I'll let actually, we'll finish up with this last question, but we do provide as much training as you need. And we do have a chat support and telephone support on anything that you may need. But I'll let any closing marks from Ellen and Rennie on our support and our services to schools, because we are just hitting up on time. And I want to just make sure that they have any closing comments from Ellen and Rennie on that last question.
I'm just going to jump in quickly, if that's okay, Rennie. The support is unbelievable. There has not been a time that my parent coordinator prefers a phone call than going in the chat. Immediately we get response and helped, and step by step they have walked her through everything. But the chat feature is a phenomenal feature too. So excellent support. Customer service.
I did owe Ellen to that, and anytime even I'm needed tech support where I couldn't figure out how to send the forms out, they walked me through it, and now I'm much more confident in it. So the hands-on and the human connection with Peter and Sam and others has been awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Ellen and Rennie. Thank you so much for really leading this webinar off today, and your great experiences that you had, and how you have done registration in New York City. That really opens it up to the United States and where we're going about really helping schools work out, their workflow management. There are a bunch of other questions. We will be, again, just next steps. We're going to send the webinar recording to everyone so that you have it and that you could review it. We're going to follow up with the 5-borough also case study so that you have the case study that was just recently released and talks about how schools across the 5 boroughs were using the registration platform and beyond. And whether or not you're a current client, whether you need information about the product or anything else, you could always just reach out to us, www.operoo.com/contact-us. Just fill that in. We'll get back to you if you want to see an individual demo and talk about it with your district or your school. If you are a current client and you want to figure out a new workflow process, we'll set up a meeting with our clients to set up that new workflow process. Just reach out on that contact us link, and we'll get you moving. I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you for such a great session. We'll be sending out these to all registrants within the next week or so, that you'll have all this information, but please feel free to reach out to us as we go through that process. Thank you again. Thank you to our great esteemed panelists. Appreciate your time today and your energy, and we look forward to talking soon. Have a great and wonderful day, everyone, and please stay safe.
Stay safe. Take care, everyone.
Thank
you.